Go ahead and get started. Like I said, our first conversation of the day is with the gentleman who has started the fastest growing commercial real estate brokerage in the country. He's got a vantage point of every asset class and is also an entrepreneur in building an institution that competes with global powerhouses. So I'm very excited to welcome Mr. Kyle Matthews to the stage. Come on up, brother. I'm going to put you right over here. So I appreciate you opening us up this morning. I know that you're an early guy.
Yeah.
Because one of the most important things to you is your brokers coming into the office at 6:30 in the morning.
They do.
So this is a pretty late start. Everybody here is pretty delinquent, right? Anybody who trickles in from the back after this point.
Because our brokers hopefully aren't drinking the way these guys were drinking last night.
Well, I don't know. I've had my share of broker adventures.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So here's what I've got. You are doing 2,500 transactions right now. You're on your way to doing 3,500 transactions a year, 25 offices, 800 people, going on 1,000. There's just never a brokerage firm that's grown as fast as yours. Do I have all that right?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, so let's just start off by framing where you're coming from in your career and your entrepreneurial journey. Maybe not start from the Marcus days, but like kind of from the Collier's days. And why did you start Matthews Real Estate?
Yeah, I will take it back because I think a little bit of my background on the personal side helps, understand a lot of the mindset that drives Matthews, the company, and myself personally. I played football at USC out in Los Angeles in the Pete Carroll days, and it was such a blessing. I didn't play that much because we actually had good players on my team at the time, unfortunately for me. But learned so much in watching how he ran a high-performance organization that won a lot of games but had a lot of fun doing it. And so unbeknownst to me at the time, I was kind of learning this style of running an organization that later in my life now that I've been able to the best of my abilities apply. So got into brokerage right out of college because I very quickly realized I'd have to find something else to do with my life. Started at Marcus, went to Collier's, and to establish credibility with the audience, it was 2014, and my focus was investment sales of retail properties, shopping centers, and single tenant, and I had a very traditional team in a brokerage sense, and in 2014, I was their top producer globally. I was 32 years old. Everything was going great. And in early 2015, I got a call from their C-suite saying, hey, we're going public this summer. I think it was in June. This was in February, but in June, we're going to go public. Some of the rules about, where you can transact, how the commission gets split up, we're enforcing what's called exclusive market coverage rights. And that was a problem for me because my business at the time had evolved to very account-driven. So, a lot of the large publicly traded operating REITs or private equity platforms would hire me and say, okay, here's 3 shopping centers. I focused on selling what they defined at the time as non-core assets and in secondary, tertiary markets. But they would hand me an account of deals, and there might be a shopping center in Wisconsin, Georgia, and Texas, and I would take them out, and I had built a pretty good funnel for buyers for that type of product, and so Collier's like, hey, you're going to have to start basically handing those deals off, and that would have been very detrimental to my business, and probably more important than me, a lot of the younger agents that I had agreed to mentor that had, was really formed what my team was. And so I just said, hey, that's not going to work. And some of the larger companies, the JLLCBs of the world, they have similar kind of fiefdoms and structures, and then everybody else was a boutique. And I felt like, well, I'm kind of already running my own little boutique. I'll start a boutique, and we'll see how it goes. And if at any point I don't like it, I'll just slap it back onto a big company. And
you were doing 118 transactions simultaneously.
I think it was, the number was around there in terms of when I left. So it was rolling, and starting my own company was not something that I aspired to do. It certainly was not a plan I ever had. I had never had a business plan, I think, until 5 years after I started Matthews. I was like, well, I probably should create a plan. I was just waking up every morning and, just making the decisions that I felt were best in that moment. And, again, not a victim. It ended up working out great. But starting my own company was very much a response to a change that Collier's at the time made, and look, they went on to crush it, and I'm still very close with a lot of the leadership. So it was a very, in a business where it doesn't always go this way, it was an incredibly amicable split, and they went on to do great, and I went on to do okay too.
So in my entrepreneurial journey, I experienced a specific year where we grew very quickly, and that caused unique problems. So can you talk about the growth pattern and perhaps a story of crossing a chasm of growth, maybe when you decided to actually sit down and write that business plan 4 or 5 years later?
That's a good question. We grew fast. I started Matthews in April 2015, so about 9 years ago, almost to the day, and I had, 15 people, and then a year later it was 30, and a year later it was 60, and then 100, 150. So it grew pretty quick. To answer your question, though, it was actually the year of COVID, where, in my opinion, we had this kind of moment. We had this summer class planned of 75 hires, and we were going to open an office or two, and we were just plugging along. If you look at transaction volume, which is a big thing on the brokerage side, you study, it was 5 to 10% per year growing. It's very linear from 15 to 19, and the market was great. It was super stable. Hasn't been since. February 2020, we were all there in March, and something major is happening. We shut down our offices for 4 or 5 weeks. We shut down our offices just like anyone else because it was very serious when it hit. And I don't know why. Looking back, it's I don't gamble ever. Like I don't like gambling, but it definitely was the biggest gamble I ever made. In early March of 2020, I was like, fuck this. Like we're not. Sorry. We're going out on our shield. Like we're not gonna watch this company burn to the ground, sitting in our living rooms, having the young guys play Call of Duty. We're back in the office. May 4th, I think we opened all of our offices, and like 95% of our agents returned. It was voluntary, but it was like, get back. And but the big moment was we saw across the industry every brokerage company, and to a degree rightfully so, cancel all of their new hires and their summer internships. And part of it was I felt like that was wrong. Part of it was I was like, man, everything I've ever been told is be greedy when others are fearful, and everybody's afraid. I was afraid, but so we said, let's double our summer class. Like let's basically open our arms to anyone.
Really?
To anyone who wants to get into commercial real estate brokerage. And we ended up bringing in 170 new hires in June of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, and we did the best we could. We got custom masks. We put up, glass. But like these people are jammed in. Everybody got COVID within a week, and everybody was fine. And and then we just moved forward. And a lot of the bigger competitors who are, they have great leadership, they're great companies, but it took them years to kind of move out of that phase, and they're still struggling to get people back in the office, and we haven't had to deal with a lot of those challenges because we just ripped that Band-Aid off so fast and so hard early on.
And now you are.
Did I answer your question?
You did answer the question. Thank you. Yeah. So now, and actually, tech team in the back, if you guys wouldn't mind, we don't have the displays in front of stage for the timer if you guys want to work on that. But now, Green Street ranked you guys number 9 last year in transaction volume. Is that right? Transaction count?
If you say so.
Oh, okay. I don't know. That was it.
Did my people tell you that? Then yeah, it's
okay. All right. Well, regardless, you are somewhere in that sphere of influence where you are now being listed alongside of JLL Colliers. It's not like a regional boutique somewhere in the hundreds.
No. We have 800 people across 25 offices. We're 9 years old. I think what I would find interesting if I was in the audience, so, I try not to be biased here, is self-funded, no debt, no investors. I bootstrapped the whole thing. I'm obviously still the largest owner by far, but there's been equity awarded out to some of my teammates who've helped build enterprise value. Everybody who owns part of Matthews works there full time. It's the most important thing in their life professionally. And, we're just getting started. We have a lot of momentum. We have a lot of young, talented agents who are getting better every day. And, we're very excited about what the future holds. I tell you, if we're number 9 in terms of volume, we're probably 7 in number of deals. Like our average deal size is going to be a little smaller. Our average deal size is probably $7 million. So like, I call that middle markets. Everybody's got a different definition of what that is. But our main food groups, obviously retail, industrial, multifamily. We do a lot of self-storage. We do retail leasing and debt origination as well, the other service lines.
So yeah, let's talk about that because you were a retail guy. Mm-hmm. What drove you to say, okay, we're not going to be a retail boutique. We are going to become an institution like all the other houses.
Yeah, when I started the company in 2015, it was retail, but without contradicting what I said earlier, I didn't have a plan. There was very quickly I said, hey, look, we want to build multifamily. And the reason for that, to answer your question, is especially on the smaller retail side, if any of you are dealing in smaller single tenant developments or 2 or 3 tenant developments, and this is true about almost any net lease product, is the biggest driver from a buyer pool are 1031 exchanges, mostly coming out of apartments, who are looking for more yield and less management. And I'll just kind of generalize here. You have someone who sells a multifamily building, a 10-unit apartment building in LA, and let's call it 2015, and they're selling at a 5 cap, and they could buy a retail single tenant deal at a 6 cap and go from managing tenants, termites, and toilets to a bondable asset. And multifamily, there's a lot of blessings about that product type that net lease doesn't have, but most of it is a lifestyle choice. They're later in their years. They want to focus on their grandkids, on travel, on health. And so what I saw was, when we dove in and really understood the clients and what was driving their motivations and what was their why are you buying this, it typically came from this product type of multifamily. And like any good business, if you want to call it vertically integrated in a way, we said, okay, right now we're relying on other brokerage companies and other agents, other companies to bring their buyers, because we don't have multifamily. Let's get multifamily going, and there will be a lot of multifamily agents over here who sell a building, and they can take that client and that trade and trade over here. And as a company, that both those deals are within the company's umbrella, which is a good thing.
Awesome. All right, so I want to talk about the future of your entrepreneurial journey. Where are you headed, both for the company? You kind of gave me some stats on the next milestone. And where are you headed personally? What drives you and motivates you? What's your endpoint for this game?
Yeah, well, for the company, it's still, we're really at this fork in the road where, and both paths work really well for us. So, our attitude is we're going to do both. And so, staying on the same path we're on now, we continue to grow in what I call a traditional brokerage platform. Is we still have, there's so many markets we're not yet in, investment sales, debt, leasing. There's so many product types, more so on the niche side, like I think student housing, seniors housing, hospitality, like where we really we don't do that yet, or we're just starting to. So I could sit here and say, it's just keep doing what we're doing, and there's so much growth. I want to say, I did see a report come out that said, okay, Matthew's market share in the market is 1.6%, and I guess that's good, but that's 98.4% of the deals that we don't have. And I have no expectations that we're going to get to 20 or 30 or 40. I don't know if any company does, but we certainly can get to 2, 3, 4. And if you just look at, if we're at 1.5 and we can get to, let's just call it 6 over the next decade, that's a quadrupling, just respectfully, of our revenue. That's a very, very big number.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's just, okay, let's just stay the course. But the second is in really going through cycles where, in breaking our industry into predictable and unpredictable revenue, or the CEO of CBRE in his earnings call talked about resilient and non-resilient income. Investment sales is not resilient income. It
Right.
very much flows. And I'll give Matthews a plug here. We've done better than anyone. I think last year the market was down 55%. We were down 18%. This year the market's down 30% through the first 2 months. I haven't seen March's report. We're up 17.9, 18% year over year. So we're doing very well. But it's been a grind, man. Like like we battle every day, which is fine. That's what we're born to do. But it would be nice if we could also build platforms and resilient income, and ARR-driven business, and predictable revenue. So what is that? That's commercial property management. It's property insurance. It's debt servicing. So really starting about halfway through last year, that for the first time ever in my life, in my day-to-day, those are conversations now I'm having. Those are opportunities we're exploring, whether it's through a strategic partnership, M&A for the first time, because we've never done M&A. It's worth noting Matthews was grown. There's never been an M&A deal. We've never bought anyone. It's just organic growth or people reaching out. So through doing property management, property insurance, debt servicing, appraisal evaluation, those are new service lines within the bucket of commercial. Matthews Real Estate Investment Services. Those are services that eventually we very much will offer to clients, and if I do it right, it will be offered at a high level.
Wow, so your horizon is just very broad right now. You just climbed a very steep mountain. Very low.
I want to make sure I answered your question. It's important. In brokerage, you get good at listening and saying, okay, what are they really asking? So I want to make sure that I still have those skills. You asked what my personal reasons were, my why.
Yep.
how much time you got, right?
Yeah. You package it into 2.5 minutes?
I think so. Like early on in your 20s, it's financial anxiety. It's like, I just have to make more money than I spend. I don't want to be a loser. So,
I can relate to that. That's going to be the best ever advice that you tell me later, right? Make more money than you spend. Don't be a loser.
I have 422 to 26-year-olds at Matthews, and you'd be shocked at how many don't seem to mind, spending more than they make.
Yeah.
So a lot of my job is continuing to raise young men and women, even though it's not my responsibility. I've accepted it. But early on is financial anxiety, and then if you work really hard, and look, I'll credit all of you. You're here. You don't have to be. My guess is you spent money to be here. You proactively invested in your business, which is you, and especially in real estate, to be here and to learn and to educate yourself, to meet new people and network. So, for whatever it's worth, you're doing the right thing, and it's credit to you, because especially in a market like today where it's tough to raise money. It's tough to find deals. It's tough to get people to buy into what you're looking to do. These are the times you plant the seeds, because the sun's going to come out again and your business is going to grow, and you're going to look back and say, wow, that period of time when the market was tough, like that was really the foundation for all the success I'm experiencing. And I experienced this in the GFC. Like when I was going through it, man, it sucked. I didn't know what was happening. I was just trying to survive. But after I came out of it and I experienced this success in Colliers and even Matthews, I've had time to reflect to say, like, how did that happen? And I hopefully I've made some good decisions. But a lot of it, I give credit to the fact that the global financial crisis just wiped a lot of my competition out, because they just gassed out and they quit and they gave up and they fell into victimhood, and they, the market, my product type, my mentor, my company. And at the end of the day, it's just you're in control of your outcome, every one of you. And, markets can affect the time it takes to get there. Certain bosses and partners can affect the smoothness or the turbulence of the journey, but you're in control of getting to where you want to go in life. So why do I do this? I'll be transparent. You ever heard of the Matthews family, the football family? Like Clay Matthews, Bruce Matthews, that's my family, right? And everyone in my family is effectively an incredibly successful professional athlete, but I'm not. But I'm the oldest male in my generation, and maybe this is old school thinking. And so my grandfather played for the 49ers, then he actually went and fought in the Korean War, then he came back, and he became the CEO of a publicly traded company over 25 years, Bell & Howell, so very successful. Then his son, my father, Clay, played 19 years in the NFL, most games in the history of the NFL for a linebacker, missed the Hall of Fame last year by 1 vote, very frustrating. And just an incredible man, and then his brother, my uncle Bruce, Hall of Fame offensive lineman. And so expectations are a good thing, if you make them a good thing. So for me, when I played football at SC, and then I realized there's levels to that game, right? And I played safety, and the guy who played safety at my position when I was at SC, a guy named Troy Polamalu. So when you play with a guy like that, you're like, okay, he's here, I'm here, like I got to find something else to do. But to answer your question, like what drives me is I said, I'm not going to be the first Matthews who doesn't do something great. And my great, thank you. I appreciate whoever clapped. I can't see, but hell yeah to you. My great performance wasn't going to come unmeasurably on a football field or whatever. And I really liked real estate, like the concept. I said, okay, then whatever I choose to do in real estate, I'm going to be the greatest of all time. And so that's what drives me, and is to say, when I hang up my cleats, which is not today, I want, for whatever reason, for whatever inherently deep or shallow motivations that I hold, I want, when I walk by there, say, that's Kyle Matthews, that's the greatest to ever do it. And that's why I do it.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a combination of inspiring and vulnerable.
But if I share it, now I actually have to do it.
Yeah.
So
it's
that's
an accountability thing. It's recorded. Everybody here's listening. Yeah. You're putting yourself out on real estate Twitter, right? So you can follow Kyle on Twitter, keep him accountable, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about, late night. Let's talk about brokerage. The actual service that you provide. A lot of the folks here, the dream is to find that off-market deal that they can pitch as a unique offering to their investors. Like, why is it a good deal? It's off-market. I found it at some quality discount. I circumvented the process. What does brokerage do for the seller? Why is it worth the fee? But also, what does brokerage do for the buyer? Why in our world should we be collaborating with brokers as opposed to trying to create our own competitive off-market dial set?
That's a great question, and I don't know if it's either this or that. I think you can do both. I think, and I don't know if this will be a surprise to you. If I'm an investor and I'm looking for a deal, yes, and I'll touch on it in a second. I want to be talking to, meeting with, and building real meaningful relationships with every agent in my space, my product type, and my geography. The top agent down to the agent who just started at Matthews yesterday, because you never know who's going to be the greats down the road. You never know who 10 years from now is going to be the new dominant agent in that space. So be kind to everyone. Treat everyone the way you would want to be treated if you were in their shoes. I promise you, making 500 cold calls a week and getting rejected, it's not easy, and they don't do it because they love to do it. They do it because that is what they have to do to get to where they want to go in life, no different than the things you have to do. But I'll tell you, if I'm an owner, yeah, absolutely. I'll reach out to owners. I'll go to conferences and try and network. Never stop trying to find product. Off-market deal has a very sexy connotation because oftentimes, I mean, you kind of answer your own question as to why is there value or why work with a broker when you're selling. For the same reason, flipped, why do you want an off-market deal? Because there's no competition, and if there's no competition, generally speaking, that means you get a better price. If a buyer, that's a good thing. You want a better price. But when you're a seller, you don't want to sell a property at a good price, right? You want to sell it at the highest price possible that the last remaining human on the planet will like, okay, I'll buy that. Like you want to win that negotiation. So the reason to work with agents as a seller, simply put, is competition, is creating competition amongst buyer pool, whether real or imagined. There are some deals, if priced correctly, you can have 3, 4, 5 offers, and you really do create a bidding environment. But a lot of times, there might be one offer. It might be one buyer, and without misrepresenting it from the broker to the buyer, as long as you create this feeling of, hey, we're talking to a lot of buyers, there's a lot of interest, it creates this accountability for the buyer, like, hey, you better perform because there's a line of people waiting outside the door to buy this deal if you slip up, whether real or imagined. And on the buy side, look, oftentimes, there's value to hiring an agent, no matter who it is, to create a higher price, to create that competitive environment, and that's the fee you're paying for. But sometimes I say, well, what if I told you some of the fee you're paying for when you list a property with Ben is you're actually putting a deposit or a down payment on being first in line to seeing his next best deal, right? Because you'd be lying to yourself if you don't think, like, as an agent, if Ben were to list with me, let me flip this around. If Ben were to list with me and he were to sell, like, I wouldn't be in the business very long if I didn't inherently know that what he did was very beneficial to my business, very kind, and I had a lot of gratitude. And almost everyone who walks the earth has some reciprocity gene where it's like, I want to get him back. Like, I want to do well for him because he did well for me. And so whether it's a day, a month, a year later, when I find that really good deal, whether it's a deal that I actually have listed and bring to market, and I got to run a process, but maybe it's a whisper price, maybe it's a last look, or oftentimes, no matter how hard we sell an owner on the value of listing, you guys know they're just not going to do it. So I actually do have an off-market deal as an agent. Unless I'm really crazy, I'm going to take it to Ben first, because if no other reason, I want to let that be my thank you for taking the shot on me to list your product with me, that hopefully I did a great job. And so, yes, when you sell property, the idea is they're going to drive a value above and beyond the percentage of fee. If you're paying them a 4-point fee, they better get more than 4% of the value. Yes, there's value in that they're actually taking a lot of time off your plate. So do a time value of money, equation. How much time will this broker save me? Add that up. And is it bigger than the fee? Yes, you should hire them. But if nothing else, you're also putting realistically a down payment, a deposit on increasing the probabilities that agent brings you their next best deal.
Okay, and so I have a follow-up question, but before we get to that, we're starting to get a little busy in the back. The folks standing in the back, if you could do me the favor of closing those doors so we can keep the audio pristine in here and the conversation unadulterated by the outside noise. Thanks for the hookup, guys. Another question that we commonly ask in this room is, how do we get first look? And you started to allude to it, being kind to everybody, reciprocity, but flesh that out for me a little bit. Flesh that out for me a little bit. How do we get first look? How do we become a favored first call?
List product with me. A lot of it depends on where you play in the space. So if you're in what I'll call, like, let's say the institutional space, and you're doing deals 50 million and up, most of the product's going to be controlled by agents who are 20, 30 years in the business, truly. And they have 15, 20 long-standing, decade-long relationships. And so it's actually a lot harder as a newer player to crack in. And really, I don't want to say the only way, but more often not, the way to get in that is you or some dirt dog you have finds a site, you develop it, you finish the product, it's ready for sale because that's what your business plan and what your LPs want, and then you hire that established top team, and they're like, hey, okay, you're new to the market, that's great, we're the top team, and now we're going to start dialoguing and transacting. What's interesting about kind of the sub 10 million space is even though there will be a senior agent, you'll see it at Matthews, you'll see it at Marcus, you'll see it at Colliers, you'll see it at all these companies. There'll be like, an agent, senior vice president, and then there's like the associate, right? You ever see that? That's the labor behind the deal. The associate's the one who dug it up. It's the associate's deal. The SVP, the EVP, the managing director, the partner, the CEO of the Matthews Group of nobody, it's they're kind of stewarding the deal because that associate is in their first 1, 2, 5, 10 deals, and they really don't necessarily know they know how to cold call, they know how to meet, and they know how to dig things up, they know how to beat the bushes, but they don't really know what to do after. And that's the mentor-mentee dynamic, is that the junior digs up the leads and the senior knows how to, it's like I win it, you skin it. I know how to process this to a paycheck, and that's why they share the fee. But over time, that junior agent's skills are going to elevate, and eventually they're going to be able to stand alone. Now, whether they can do that at the company they're at or not, that's something they have to work through. But be incredibly kind to the associate because they're the ones likely digging up the deal. And a lot of people don't know this. They think it's someone that the senior slapped on the deal to help them run the deal, and it's actually in reverse. In the sub 10 million space, which my guess is a lot of you, that's kind of where you start out, and that's where you're going to cut your teeth and build a loyal base of, investors or start to build a name and brand in the space. It's going to be kind of the sub 10, sub 15. And so a lot of times I'll hear, and I think you've maybe heard me talk about this, I'll hear from a big owner, hey, Kyle, man, one of you young guys called me, and it's so frustrating. Like, he didn't know what he was doing. Like, he wasn't prepared. And there's a guy in Salt Lake, Chris Hatch, who just put something out today, actually complimenting me. So I texted him. I was very grateful because, it's like Yelp. Only the pissed off people leave reviews, right? So when I get a good one, I'm very grateful. So thank you, Chris, if you're out there. But I say, I get that. I get it. And look, we're going to work with these young men and women. We're going to continue to coach them on being prepared, on knowing what your portfolio looks like, on understanding what drives value, on not just calling you to say, hey, what are your plans? Like, trust me, we coach the shit out of these guys, and it still takes time, okay? It takes time. But you don't want them to call you to bug you, right? But then you want them to call you when they get that good deal. Like, how does that work? That ain't going to work, all right? They're going to call the person who's really nice to him, who's really kind, who agrees to go grab coffee, even though they're like, why am I meeting this young agent from Matthews? Why am I meeting this young agent from whatever company? Like, I don't even know the purpose. And guess what? 9 out of 10 of those meetings are not going to be a good use of time, but the 1 out of 10 will. And so what I always do is I do kind of an equation in my head as I said, all right, what if I told you that agent's going to call you 5 times a year, for, let's say 6 times a year for 10 minutes. They're going to take 1 hour of your life for 5 straight years. So and it's going to be a waste. They're going to waste 5 hours of your life for the next 5 years, but they're going to bring you one deal over the next 5 years that you might be able to make $500,000 on. Do that math. Do $500,000 divided by 5 hours. That's $100,000 an hour. Is that a good return on your time?
What do you guys think? All right.
If you look at it over a broad enough spectrum of human beings in brokerage, that formula that I just gave you is undefeated. It has never been disproven. And you could look at it, okay, what if that agent doesn't bring me a deal? It's like, I totally get it. I get it. So let's look at it over 10 agents. That's 5 hours over the next 5 years over 10 agents. That's 50 hours. 50 hours of your time will be wasted, even though nothing's ever a waste, but let's say it's wasted, and one deal for 500. Okay, now that's 10,000 an hour. Is that still a good return on your time? You bet your ass it is. 100%. So take the cold call. And when you're on it, be kind, agree to meet for coffee, tell them what you're looking for, explain them, take time, hold their hand, they'll never forget it. Hey, you know what, Ben? I appreciate the call. Hey, listen, you young in the business? Cool. Well, keep doing what you're doing. You're on the right path. Don't ever give up. And oh, by the way, next time you call, here's some questions that you should think about asking. And here's what's important to me. And here's how you could add value. In fact, next time you're in town or you're down the street, yeah, let's go grab coffee. you have an army of unpaid acquisition people at your feet, which are brokers. And there's so much value in brokers. I'm very biased, of course, but you can't tell me I'm wrong.
So what I'm hearing, if I could summarize that, is just to inject a little bit of humanity into this capitalism.
Yeah, I'd inject humanity into a lot of things in today, but yes.
Okay, all right. I appreciate that. We got about 6 minutes left, a little bit more. I want to ask about your vantage point in seeing the commercial real estate ecosystem. Where is transaction volume going? Crystal ball this for me. We're not going to hold you to it.
Yeah.
And where is seller sentiment at? What's important to sellers? What's driving their, getting them to the table? What are the things that are exciting them about buyers?
Well,
how can we win?
Yeah, there's so much changing. Real estate's such a slow-moving industry. I always tell people it's not that exciting. It doesn't move as fast as equities, but really in the last couple weeks, it's been moving so fast. There's so much changes. Coming into the year, 2023 was a historically bad year for transaction volume. It was the lowest volume year since 2013, I think, okay? GFC level bad. Volume was down 55%. Now, GFC, they're down 80%, consecutively. So it wasn't to that level, but it was the worst year really on record. RCA, Green Street, none of them would track going back into the 90s. So second worst drop in our history, in our lifetime. And so even just on a year-over-year comparison, I came into the year, we saw treasuries go from 500 to 385 between October and December. We saw Powell come out in December, talk, hey, our rate hike cycle is over, and now we're pivoting to talk about rate cuts. He said 3. The market was pricing in 7. That might have been a little euphoric. But, within the first 30 days, it kind of started coming down. But in the last week or two, we had a blowout jobs report Friday. We had a terrible, terrible CPI print yesterday. Now, the talk is no rate cuts, maybe 1 or 2, even though the Fed's trying to message that's not true. Treasuries went from 385 back up to 455. And unfortunately, the answer to your question is I think velocity this year will look very much like last year, just historically very low. It's challenging. So short term, that's frustrating for everyone in the room. I promise you it's frustrating for me. But long term, this is what will weed out the fakes in the business. It will weed out the mentally weak people and companies that are not meant to be here. And if you're a killer, that should be a good thing. You should look forward to that. Just don't be one of those, right? It's like a meteor strike on the industry, like the dinosaurs. Like most of them died, but not all of them, and that's what's happening in our industry right now. Seller sentiment is they're finally breaking. Cap rates are moving fast, higher. So values are coming down quickly. Yeah. Last year.
Why? Is it debt distress? Is it just
I think it's a combination. I think when you have a motivation to sell an asset, whether it's an apartment building because you're tired of the management, or it's a net lease deal because there's 4 years left and they don't report store sales and the rent's not replaceable. You have motivations, but you're like, oh, it's June 23, the market's terrible. Buyers are borrowing in the mid-6s, which means they need a 7 handle on a cap rate, kind of as a minimum starting point, just to be even close to positively levered. I'm just not going to sell. I'll wait another year. Market will come back. Oh, Fed just messaged rate cuts. Yeah, I'll be back. I'll just wait. But there just comes a point where you can't wait any longer either, because you as an owner are tired and you're like, look, okay, maybe my building was worth $5 million last year and now it's worth 4.2. I don't even care anymore. Especially if you're doing a 1031, sell low, buy low. You're trading in the same market. But sellers are getting tired. We're seeing pricing move faster in the last 90 days than we've seen in the previous 9 months. And yields are starting to get to a point, where buyers are saying, okay, I might be able to make money on this. And we saw that no bigger representation of this than Blackstone coming in and buying the AIR REIT. It was like $9 billion. And the messaging from, I think it was Jonathan Gray, was, hey, we don't think you can perfectly time a market, but we think we're pretty close to the bottom of this pricing cycle. So I thought that was interesting. Blackstone has a pretty credible track record, to say the least. So pricing's moving, but now we're starting to see buyers come back in. We're starting to see spreads come down a little bit on the lending side, which is good because it shows some money's coming back on the lending side, so they're having to compete. But it's still a very historically challenged market. So if you're feeling that and didn't know why, I hope this helps. If you're feeling that and frustrated, I get it. But just hang in there and just keep pounding.
So if you were, again, not going to hold you to it, maybe I will. I don't know. If you were to guess, next 3 to 6 months, that's when you would time to strike.
Yeah. I don't know if this analogy will work, but it was in the global financial crisis, and there were a lot of stocks that were low, and I had a manager who's like, look, if you want to put 10,000 bucks in the stock market, don't try and time the day that you put it in. Put $1,000 in 10 straight months. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna miss the lowest point like in concentration, but you'll be pretty close. And so what I'd say is, I don't know if it's the next 3 or 6 months, but I would say now and for the next 12 to 18 months, in my opinion, based on all the information that I have at my disposal, which is a lot, we sell a lot of real estate now, is I think you're going to be protected from a basis, like what you purchase product over the next 12 to 18 months. And there's exceptions to every rule, but if you lose a big tenant or something happens in a local municipality and that drives people away, you could get hurt. But for the next 12 to 18 months, if you're buying, I think from a yield, going in yield, from a basis of cost into the deal, I think you're going to be pretty well protected.
All right, so with our last 30 seconds here, what should we be doing with our free time to prepare for that moment to strike?
I don't have free time. Our
free time, not your free time, Kyle.
Well, I look at it kind of gets to that work-life balance concept. I work and I dad and I work, so 99% of my time is pre-committed. So with your free time as it relates to applying it to your profession.
Our free time inside of our work time, our work free time.
Yeah. Identify what are the fundamentals of your profession and pour everything and anything you have into the fundamentals. We were talking we were just talking backstage. There's a lot that goes into brokerage, but if I had to just pick 3 things, if someone's like, hey, I want you to evaluate this agent, and you got 10 seconds to do it, do you think they're going to make it? I say, okay, what time do they get in the office? How many calls they make, and how many deals do they pitch on average a week? And that's all I need, and I could be pretty accurate within like 99% success of like, will they make it, assuming nothing changes, or will they won't? And so the fundamentals of brokerage are, what time do you get in the office? How many prospecting calls a week do you make on average? And then how many, depending on your product type, meeting and or pitches do you go on? Because some product types you don't meet the clients if it's net lease. So identify what are those fundamental things for your business. Is it reaching out and meeting with agents? Is it prospecting to find development sites? Fundamentals is a really nice way of putting like the crap work that doesn't excite you. It's the stuff that you don't want to do. It's kind of like, it's almost like physically being healthy. It's like eating healthy and working out. It's really hard, but that is the most important inputs to being a healthy person.
So what I'm hearing is we're in training season. Just
yes.
to bring it back to the analogy. We're in training season.
We're in training camp right now.
Get our fundamentals right to get ready for the big game for the start of the season.
Absolutely.
Make sure that we get to the
the games aren't won under the lights. The games are won in the weeks and months leading up to it, where you train in the darkness and you're working out at 6 a.m. for hours on end. And when you're done and your body tells you can't go anymore, you then go do another workout, you do another sprint, you do another set, you spend more time in the film room. And so fundamentally focus on like the basic value drivers for your business and just never stop doing them. There will come a time here soon, I don't know if it's 2, 3, 4 years, where again, the market's going to get really fun. It's going to get, I don't want to say easy, it's going to get easier for sure. And you're going to look real smart. And respectfully, that's when you could probably do other things. And, your golf handicap can improve, but now is not the time to do that.
Kyle Matthews, everyone, round of applause. Thank you so much for being here, Kyle. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
He's going to be around today. He's actually going to be at the VIP lunch, and I'd love to announce the VIP experience winner for lunch, Leah Martinez. You can hit up the Reg Room. Kyle will be there. One more round of applause. Thank you, Kyle.